Welcome to the Bible Forum. I want to share with you in this excerpt some biblical reason being inserted into the system. I'm going to look at 4 articles demonstrating hope. One comes from UNCW, University of North Carolina, Wilmington branch, on the Voice of Reason, about a church giving cohabiting couples a chance, and about Christian healthcare group and Mormons, along with Princeton University stimulating a biblical scenario. Our old buddy Mike Adams is at it again. Mike used to be a regular on conservative radio stations in the Wilmington, North Carolina market for years. He may still be on Wave, 980 The Wave. We had him on the Bible Forum several times. He was always willing to stop by and spend an hour or so. That's when we were broadcasting from 2 FM stations in Wilmington and not just on the internet. Did the internet as well. Now, Michael, who, did I mention, teaches at UNCW, has been something of a radical. He has now won an extended lawsuit against the college that would bar them from persecuting him for his conservative views as they move forward. They have been not happy with his conservative views for a number of years. And they put pressure on him, and he went to court. Well, now Mike has a new course. He calls it Issues in Criminal Justice. He teaches criminology? And the left is not going to like it, he says. Mike says, I'm worried if I don't cause controversy. I'm extremely worried about that. A lack of controversy on college campuses is a sign of sickness and intellectual atrophy. Mike calls this new class a reasoned response to systematic academic malpractice. Please note, he says, that whereas political leftists author virtually all of the readings in your other courses, conservatives and libertarian authors most of the readings in this course. This is done so that you will be exposed to beliefs that contradict those of the vast majority of your professors. Often these dissenting views are presented only as caricatures. In this class, you will hear from the proponents of such views directly. Among the required reading list, he says, you will find Mike Lee's Our Lost Constitution, the willful subversion of America's founding document. You will find John Lott Jr.'s More Guns, Less Crime, Understanding Crime and Gun Control Laws. There will also be K.C. Johnson's and Stuart Taylor's The Campus Rape Frenzy, The Attack on Due Process at America's Universities. And finally, Heather McDonald's The War on Cops, How the Attack on Law and Order Makes Everyone Less Safe. One section of the class focuses on the major progressive theories of crime. It will tackle things like why these theories have been such a failure and why academics won't admit it. Students will be required to watch a movie, Boys in the Hood, as part of the discussion. On the topic of abortion, a screening of the movie Unplanned will be offered to students as an optional viewing for a discussion regarding Roe v. Wade. The syllabus asks, quote, what happened to the criminal law when Roe v. Wade was decided? And perhaps more importantly, what will happen if it is overturned? He says we first need to talk about what Roe said and what it did not say. Next, we'll talk about the very prospect that it could be overturned and who will be subject to criminal liability if that happens. Adams is a former Democrat and a former atheist. And he plans to be upfront about his personal religious beliefs to the students in his class. The syllabus alerts students to the fact that he is openly critical of certain aspects of evolution. He says, rather than seeing you as a mere product of random mutation, I see you as a unique individual endowed by his Creator, not just with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but also a purpose. Each one of you has unique and special talents, and along with that, a distinct purpose in life that makes you not just unique, but irreplaceable. Adams also points out that the course will not only tackle and critique subjects sacrosanct to the left-wing scholars, but will also treat students like adults. He freely admits in the syllabus his class is, quote, no safe space, end of quote. There is a Dallas megachurch. I'm not a fan of megachurches. I might be a fan of this one. This is a megachurch giving cohabiting couples a viable option, and not just by preaching sermons. Earlier this month, 24 couples held hands and committed to a lifetime of marriage in what is the 4th annual grand wedding at Dallas-based Concord Church. This reported by Christianity Today. The wedding is an all-expense-paid event made possible by generous vendors, including artists, hairstylists, and musicians, all from the congregation, and concludes Pastor Brian Carter's 90-day cohabitation challenge. The challenge started 4 years ago by Carter, encourages couples to either move out or get married. The congregation offers to pay rent for anyone who decides to move out, and couples who choose marriage enter 90 days of premarital counseling and relationship classes, as well as mentorship with married couples for the first year of their marriage. Carter told Christianity Today, quote, it helps us to model the gospel because the gospel is redemptive, end of quote. It's not just about us calling out a struggle that people may have, but let's talk about how we can move from where we are to the place where God is honored. The challenge began while Carter was teaching a series on singleness. He says, I didn't want to preach about cohabitation without giving people a pathway forward. And so we just began tossing ideas around, and somehow we landed with, what would happen if we married them? The congregation wanted to tackle cohabitation because of the negative effects it can have on families. He says marriage works because there's a commitment. For some people in cohabiting, she may have an expectation and he may have a different set of expectations. Domestic abuse is higher in cohabitating relationships. Children do more poorly academically and emotionally in cohabitation relationships. Temptation for premarital sex is also higher in cohabiting couples. But Carter sees the grand wedding idea as an opportunity to speak grace and truth, especially with his background. Carter lived with his girlfriend, now wife, and understands why couples also often seek this option. He said, we moved in together before we were married primarily because of financial reasons. And I had some problems at home, so I needed a place to stay. It probably gives us some sensitivity and some grace for them that we understand. When we tell them, if you want to move out, we'll pay your rent, I get to say, quote, I'm paying your rent because that's what my brother did for me. The challenge is seeing great success over the years, having married over 80 couples, and seeing 7 professions of faith in the last challenge alone. But even those who don't enter the challenge have been inspired. There's a lot of people that weren't in the program. They just heard about it, did it on their own. He says, I met a guy in the airport one time, and he said, hey, I proposed. I'm engaged. I gave her a ring. And I was so proud of him. On another score, there are Christian healthcare groups. Did you know that? Here's one challenging Mormons. Prefacing all of this for what I'm going to tell you at the end, there are several Christian healthcare groups. I belong to one. And I'll tell you about that one at the end of the service. At the end of this section. I have recently had bypass surgery, quadruple heart bypass surgery. I'm not sure how much that cost. I have Medicare. Medicare paid about 80% of what the cost was. My cost was about $3,000. That's what I had to pay out. You can imagine what an insurance company would pay out or what Medicare would pay. One Christian healthcare group is getting tough on Mormons, telling them to rethink their beliefs about God or leave. According to TV station KSL-TV in Salt Lake City, Samaritan Ministries is contacting members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, urging them to align their faith more strictly to what it has posted in its statement of faith. As a community of Christians, they write, who help other Christians with their health care, our guidelines require that all adult members are in agreement with the Samaritan Ministries statement of faith in order to be members. Samaritan Ministries is apparently sending emails to its Mormon members. A sample sent to Ryan Baker, a Utah native now living in Alaska, reads, Samaritan Ministries is based on the Bible, while Latter-day Saints, historically, affirm additional scriptures as authoritative. It says those scriptures, along with Mormon leaders, have, quote, denied at least some portion, end of quote, of the organization's statement of faith. Samaritan Ministries refused an on-camera interview with KSL, but gave the station a statement that cited the Affordable Care Act's requirement that members of healthcare sharing ministries share a common set of religious beliefs. Samaritan Ministries is a 501c3 not-for-profit Christian healthcare sharing ministry with over 80,000 Christian households across the country directly sharing each other's healthcare expenses for the glory of God. Samaritan members are required to sign a Christian statement of faith that outlines the biblical beliefs of historic Christianity. My wife and I have belonged to a Christian healthcare ministry for 15 or more years. The way this particular system works, you get a choice of 3 different levels of care. And each level, of course, would cost differently. You can opt in or decide you want the least expensive, and that would probably be in the neighborhood of $180 a month for a couple. If you have children, it would go up, but they only charge you for 3 members of the family. You don't get charged after that. You can go for something a little bit more or something at the high end. The high end is, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 a month, I think. One in the middle is about 5 something, and then the one down the bottom is 3 something. But they also have another program. And once we got into Medicare, that's the program that we opted for. It costs $45 a month. Well, there's 2 of us, so that's $90. And what this does is it agrees to pay your portion after whatever other insurance you have has paid. You have things you have to contribute. It will pay you and help you with that. It'll pay more than that if the bill is higher than that. They'll help you pay your bills. You have to do the best you can to pay what you can pay before you go into this. If you have insurance, you have to go to the insurance. If you do not have insurance, clearly you would have one of the other programs that covered you. But in this $45 program, whatever Medicare would not cover, they said they would. Now, I'm in a unique situation. I have a surgeon who has not sent me a bill. I appreciate that. I'm guessing his bill would be somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000, and he didn't send it to me. I called them and asked them, and they said, we don't see anything. As far as we know, it's all paid. So Medicare took care of whatever they took care of. I have still not gotten a statement from them, so I don't know what that is. But all of the things that were outside the surgeon amounted to about $50,000. Medicare paid about 80% of that. I was left with what was the balance. My calculation is somewhere around $50,000. Is that right? That would be right. No. It is a total of $50,000. I paid $3,000. Out of the $50,000, I had to pay $3,000, which I did. And then I submit those bills to my healthcare ministry, and they reimburse me. Now, my surgery is a big surgery. It's not the biggest you can have. And I had an advantage with a surgeon who was God-given. But if you end up with a huge medical bill, what are you going to do with it? You say, well, hey, I'll send them $30 a month. You can do that. My experience is that there are about 25 or 30 different people wanting money from you. You can't send them $1 each. This could be kind of an expensive thing. So I would recommend that you take a look at some of these Christian healthcare ministries and find one that would help you. It beats Blue Cross